The small town of Clearwater, Florida, had carried an unspoken shadow for years. In the summer of 2006, 29-year-old Veronica Hale, a bright and ambitious nurse known for her compassion and dedication, disappeared without a trace. Her family's frantic search ended in uncertainty, as police investigations revealed no clear leads. For months, the town's residents whispered theories, but nothing concrete surfaced. Veronica's parents, Thomas and Leila Hale, endured sleepless nights, clinging to hope while confronting the chilling reality that their daughter might never be found. Friends recounted the last time they saw her, each memory tinged with worry and the nagging feeling that something was amiss. The disappearance became a puzzle that seemed impossible to solve, and over time the case grew colder, buried beneath layers of unanswered questions and fading leads. Initial police investigations focused on Veronica's immediate surroundings. Officers interviewed neighbors, co-workers, and anyone who might have crossed paths with her in the days leading up to her disappearance. Surveillance footage from nearby stores and traffic cameras was reviewed meticulously, yet nothing pointed to a suspect or motive. Investigators considered possibilities ranging from voluntary disappearance to foul play, but every avenue seemed to reach a dead end. Despite the extensive effort, the case languished, leaving family and community members in a limbo of grief and frustration. The police, constrained by limited evidence and leads, eventually classified the case as a cold case, though the Hales refused to give up hope. Their persistence became a quiet reminder to the town that Veronica's story was not forgotten. Over the following years, Veronica's family took extraordinary steps to keep her memory alive and to seek justice. They posted flyers, engaged local media, and collaborated with private investigators, hoping that someone, somewhere, might have seen something that could break the case. The community, while supportive, was left with lingering unease. The idea that someone capable of harming a young, vibrant woman had walked free was unsettling. For the Hales, each passing year amplified both their grief and determination. They attended workshops on missing persons cases, learned about advancements in forensic science, and maintained contact with law enforcement, eager for any opportunity that could provide answers. The emotional toll was immense, but the family's resilience never wavered. By 2015, technological advancements in DNA analysis and genealogy offered new hope for cold cases like Veronica's. Police departments nationwide had begun revisiting old evidence, applying modern techniques to previously unsolvable cases. Clearwater detectives partnered with forensic laboratories to examine any remaining biological samples from the original investigation. Tiny traces collected from items in Veronica's apartment, along with hair and fiber evidence, were scrutinized under the latest scientific methods. Forensic experts compared the findings against national DNA databases, looking for matches that had previously been impossible to identify. Each step forward was cautious and meticulous, reflecting the importance of accuracy and the desire to avoid false leads after so many years of waiting. Meanwhile, the investigation took an unexpected turn when a former acquaintance of Veronica's came forward with information. They recalled a series of interactions between Veronica and a man who had been a neighbor in her apartment complex. Though initially dismissed during the early stages of the investigation due to lack of corroboration, these accounts became relevant once DNA evidence suggested a potential connection. Detectives conducted thorough interviews, revisiting old statements and cross-referencing. Slowly, a clearer picture emerged of the circumstances surrounding Veronica's disappearance, including patterns of behavior, movements, and inconsistencies in prior accounts. Each revelation added weight to the developing case, building a foundation for eventual accountability. In 2018, the breakthrough came. DNA analysis revealed a match with a man who had been under suspicion in unrelated minor offenses years earlier, but had never been connected to serious crimes. The match provided law enforcement with a tangible lead, offering a pathway toward resolving a case that had haunted the Hales for over a decade. Police executed a search warrant, collecting additional evidence that corroborated the DNA findings. The suspect, initially uncooperative and evasive, was placed under surveillance as investigators meticulously documented his movements and interactions. Law enforcement understood that any misstep could compromise the case, so patience and precision became the guiding principles. Every action was guided by the goal of achieving justice for Veronica without relying on assumptions or incomplete information. The community reacted with a mixture of hope and anxiety. Clearwater residents, long accustomed to the unresolved mystery, felt a cautious optimism that justice might finally be within reach. Local media began covering the renewed investigation, emphasizing both the persistence of law enforcement and the resilience of Veronica's family. The Hales, though nervous, welcomed the news, understanding that this could be the moment they had been waiting for since 2006. Support poured in from neighbors, colleagues, and friends who had lived through the uncertainty alongside them, reminding the family that they were not alone in their journey for closure. In early 2019, the suspect was formally approached by investigators. After careful interrogation and the presentation of irrefutable evidence, the man eventually confessed to his involvement in Veronica's disappearance. The confession detailed events that had remained hidden for years, including the sequence of actions that led to her death. While the content was devastating for the Hales, it also provided a sense of clarity that years of speculation had denied them. The confession validated the painstaking work of law, enforcement and forensic teams, and confirmed the enduring hope and vigilance of Veronica's family. Their daughter's story, once shrouded in uncertainty, now had a factual narrative, however painful, that allowed for accountability and the beginnings of emotional resolution. The arrest and confession reverberated through Clearwater. Residents were shocked to learn that someone who had lived among them, familiar in appearance and behavior, had been responsible for such a horrific act. Community meetings and discussions highlighted the importance of vigilance, reporting unusual behavior, and supporting law enforcement efforts to revisit cold cases. The story also sparked conversations about the role of DNA and genealogy in modern criminal investigations, demonstrating that even cases many years old could be resolved through scientific persistence. For the Hales, these developments reinforced a sense of vindication, knowing that the truth was finally acknowledged, and that justice would be pursued through the legal system. For Veronica's family, the confession marked the beginning of a new chapter. While the grief of losing their daughter could not be erased, they were finally equipped with the truth that had eluded them for so long. The emotional weight of years of uncertainty gave way to a focused resolve to honor Veronica's memory, to engage with community initiatives, and to help others navigating the painful journey of unresolved disappearances. They began advocating for support programs, sharing their experiences, and encouraging families not to lose hope even when years pass without resolution. Their story became a testament to resilience, patience, and the enduring pursuit of justice despite the passage of time. As the legal proceedings moved forward, Clearwater's community remained engaged, recognizing the broader implications of the case. The the use of modern forensic techniques inspired local law enforcement to re-evaluate other unsolved cases, fostering a renewed commitment to pursuing justice regardless of the age of the case. Educational initiatives highlighted the importance of documenting evidence, maintaining communication with families, and revisiting unresolved cases with new technologies. The resolution of Veronica Hale's disappearance provided both a blueprint and an inspiration for how persistence, science, and collaboration could lead to breakthroughs in cases that once seemed impossible to solve. The months following the suspect's confession were tense and emotionally charged for Veronica's family. Every conversation, every visit from investigators brought a mixture of relief and sorrow. Thomas and Leela Hale tried to focus on the positive. Finally, the truth was known, and the person responsible was in custody. Yet, the details of Veronica's final moments were heart-wrenching, leaving an emotional scar that would not easily heal. The Hales leaned on each other, finding strength in shared grief, and sought comfort in the support of close friends and the small but compassionate Clearwater community. Local residents, many of whom had followed the case from the beginning, expressed sympathy, admiration, and relief that justice was finally progressing. The case became a communal story of resilience, one that reminded people of the importance of hope, vigilance, and the belief that even long-unsolved mysteries could find resolution. During the legal preparations, detectives continued to piece together every aspect of the crime. Statements were corroborated with physical evidence, timelines were verified, and investigators worked to ensure the prosecution had a watertight case. Forensic specialists re-examined trace evidence collected from Veronica's apartment, including fingerprints, fibers, and DNA residues, cross-referencing it with the suspect's biological material. The results consistently reinforced the narrative established by the confession. Investigators documented everything meticulously, knowing that the defense could attempt to challenge the validity of evidence due to the passage of time. Every detail mattered, from the location of minor objects to the sequence of events described by witnesses, ensuring that the court would have a comprehensive picture of what had occurred. Throughout Clearwater, residents experienced a mix of emotions. The revelation of a perpetrator who had evaded detection for years caused unease, but it also provided a sense of closure. Community leaders organized meetings to discuss safety, preventive measures, and the ways in which residents could support law enforcement efforts in cold cases. The local news covered the developments extensively, highlighting both the technical breakthroughs in DNA and the tireless work of detectives, who had refused to let the case fade into obscurity. Social workers and counselors became involved, assisting families affected by the renewed focus on past crimes, acknowledging the complex emotions that resurfaced as the details emerged publicly. The city collectively grappled with grief, justice, and the challenges of understanding how such an event could remain hidden for so long. Veronica's friends were deeply affected by the developments. Many had struggled with guilt, wondering if there had been signs they missed, conversations they could have had, or moments when they could have intervened. The confirmation of the suspect's guilt both alleviated and intensified these feelings. Relief came from knowing that the uncertainty and speculation that had plagued their memories were finally resolved. Yet, the knowledge of the harm inflicted on Veronica weighed heavily. Friends gathered to support the Hales and each other, holding vigils and memorials to honor Veronica's life. These gatherings allowed the community to collectively mourn and process the trauma that had been hidden behind years of unanswered questions. The legal process moved carefully. prosecutors focused on presenting a clear and compelling case, emphasizing the confession, the DNA evidence, and the corroborating witness statements. Defense attorneys attempted to challenge the credibility of evidence and the validity of the confession due to the time elapsed since the crime. However, the meticulous documentation of investigation efforts, combined with modern forensic analysis, created a strong foundation for the case. Court hearings attracted significant attention, with families of missing persons, journalists, and residents following each development closely. The anticipation was intense, but there was also a sense that, finally, the scales of justice were being set right, even after more than a decade of uncertainty. During court proceedings, the suspect's demeanor was noted for its contrast to the gravity of the situation. He appeared tense and wary, understanding the weight of the evidence against him. Testimonies from law enforcement officers detailed the challenges faced during the initial investigation, the long period of cold case status, and the breakthrough provided by DNA analysis and the confession. Expert witnesses elaborated on forensic procedures, explaining how evidence collected in 2006 had been preserved and later analyzed to ensure accuracy. Each presentation reinforced the narrative that careful, patient investigation, coupled with evolving scientific methods, had led to the identification and apprehension of the responsible individual. The Hales, present during proceedings, experienced waves of emotion. They listened intently as the timeline of events was recounted, remembering their daughter through the voices of witnesses and experts. They found small moments of solace in knowing that Veronica's life and story were being acknowledged publicly, and that the truth would now be formally recognized by the legal system. Counselors and family friends provided support, helping them navigate the emotional strain of reliving painful memories while maintaining the focus necessary for legal proceedings. Each day in court, though difficult, became a step toward closure, allowing the Hales to process grief in a structured environment. Community reactions were similarly complex. Some residents were reassured that a dangerous individual had been held accountable. Others were unsettled, realizing that someone who had seemed ordinary and unremarkable could commit such a serious crime. School officials, religious leaders, and civic organizers took the opportunity to discuss the broader implications for community safety, highlighting the importance of reporting suspicious behavior and supporting victims' families. Local media coverage emphasized both the technical and emotional aspects of the case, documenting the perseverance of law enforcement and the resilience of a family who never gave up hope. Stories about Veronica's life, her kindness, and her contributions to the community were highlighted alongside the crime details, ensuring that her memory remained central to the narrative. As sentencing approached, the Hales focused on what they could control. They organized private gatherings to honor Veronica, creating memorials and scholarships in her name. Friends and neighbors participated, sharing stories and memories that painted a fuller picture of the woman who had been lost for so long. These acts of remembrance served as both healing and a celebration of life, acknowledging that while justice was crucial, it was equally important to remember Veronica as more than a victim. Her life, ambitions, and character became focal points for the community, allowing grief to coexist with positive action and the reinforcement of social bonds. The trial's conclusion brought a sense of finality. The suspect was found guilty on multiple counts, including charges related to the abduction and death of Veronica Hale. Sentencing reflected the severity of the crime and the prolonged impact on the victim's family and community. For Thomas and Lila Hale, the verdict offered a measure of peace, It did not erase the years of uncertainty, nor did it lessen the loss of their daughter, but it affirmed that the truth had been recognized and justice had been served. Community members applauded the perseverance of law enforcement and forensic teams, emphasizing that no case, regardless of age, should be forgotten or left unresolved. In the aftermath, the Clearwater Police Department reflected on lessons learned. The case demonstrated the vital role of technological advancements in solving cold cases, the importance of maintaining thorough documentation, and the need for consistent follow-up on unresolved investigations. Detectives shared insights with other departments, highlighting how collaboration, patience, and evolving scientific tools could revive even the most challenging cases. The successful resolution of Veronica Hale's disappearance inspired renewed confidence in cold case units and encouraged families of missing persons to maintain communication with law enforcement, knowing that justice can eventually prevail. Even after many years, for the Hales, life moved forward slowly but purposefully. They continued their advocacy work, connecting with families experiencing similar pain, and participating in community programs that educated others about missing persons cases. The memory of Veronica remained central, guiding their efforts to ensure that no one else experienced prolonged uncertainty and unanswered grief. Though the wound of loss remained, the resolution of the case allowed them to channel their energy into meaningful action, transforming personal tragedy into a commitment to prevent and address similar crimes. The final chapter of the case brought a mix of resolution and reflection for everyone involved. In Clearwater, the ripple effects of Veronica Hale's case were still being felt, even as the trial concluded. The town had endured years of speculation, anxiety, and subtle fear, and the community's sense of security had been shaken. The conviction of the perpetrator offered reassurance, but it also prompted conversations about how such tragedies could be prevented in the future. Parents, teachers, and community leaders engaged in discussions about vigilance, communication, and the importance of nurturing supportive environments where young people could feel safe. Public workshops and informational sessions emphasized practical steps for safeguarding children and young adults while fostering a stronger bond between residents and law enforcement. For Thomas and Leila Hale, the end of the trial did not end the emotional journey. Grief remained a constant companion, but it was now tempered with clarity. They had endured the uncertainty of years without knowing the truth, and the confession and conviction brought an acknowledgement of the reality that had long haunted them. In private moments, they reflected on Veronica's life, the moments of joy, laughter, and ambition, and they took comfort in knowing that her story was finally complete in the eyes of the law. Counseling and support groups became part of their routine, offering guidance in processing lingering trauma and the challenging emotions that surfaced as the public attention gradually waned. Friends and extended family found solace in shared memories of Veronica. Gatherings continued, not as formal memorials, but as personal spaces for storytelling, laughter, and reflection. Each recollection reinforced the depth of her life and impact, reminding them that she was more than the tragic circumstances of her disappearance and death. The communal mourning gradually shifted toward a celebration of her life, encouraging a forward-looking perspective that acknowledged grief while emphasizing resilience and connection. Local schools incorporated discussions about empathy, communication, and supporting peers. Inspired by the awareness Veronica's case had created, the Clearwater Police Department experienced a renewed sense of purpose. Officers who had worked on the cold case felt vindicated by the outcome, proud that persistence, meticulous record-keeping, and openness to emerging forensic technologies had yielded justice. The department documented the case as a model of effective cold case resolution, offering guidance to other law enforcement agencies and training programs. Lessons included the importance of revisiting unsolved cases with fresh eyes, maintaining evidence in pristine condition for years if necessary, and fostering strong relationships with the community to encourage reporting and support. Detective reports emphasized that perseverance, rather than rushing, had been a key factor in successfully resolving the case after more than a decade. In legal circles, the case was studied for its demonstration of how a confession, when supported by corroborating evidence, could form the backbone of a strong prosecution even after significant time had passed. Defense attorneys debated procedural nuances, but the integrity of evidence, collection, storage, and analysis ultimately strengthened the prosecution's position. The trial highlighted how advancements in DNA testing and forensic science could breathe new life into cold cases, providing closure to families who had long waited for answers. The collaboration between prosecutors, law enforcement, forensic experts, and the victim's family became an example of best practices for complex investigations that extend over many years as months passed. The town of Clearwater began to return to its rhythm, though the memory of the case lingered. Local media revisited the story periodically, focusing on the impact of the case's resolution and the lessons learned for both law enforcement and the public. Awareness campaigns encouraged vigilance without creating fear, reminding residents that community safety was a shared responsibility. The Hales participated in these efforts, sharing their experiences to highlight the importance of patience, hope, and cooperation with authorities in missing persons cases. Their advocacy became a positive legacy of Veronica's life, inspiring action that extended beyond the immediate circle of family and friends. Veronica's story also had a lasting effect on her peers. Friends who had experienced prolonged uncertainty and guilt found renewed confidence in speaking out, reporting concerns, and supporting others facing similar situations. They recognized that silence or hesitation could have long-term consequences, and Veronica's case reinforced the idea that truth could eventually emerge despite years of uncertainty. School programs, youth groups, and local non-profits incorporated elements of her story into educational materials, emphasizing resilience, vigilance, and community engagement. Her memory became a quiet but persistent force for positive change within Clearwater, ensuring that her life had meaning far beyond the tragic circumstances of her death. Psychologically, the Hales continued to navigate the aftermath with care. Therapy sessions focused on integrating grief with a sense of justice achieved, acknowledging the complexity of emotions that accompanied closure. They worked to differentiate between the relief of resolution and the enduring sadness of loss. Learning that these feelings could coexist, support networks expanded, including neighbors, friends, and even other families affected by long unsolved crimes. This shared understanding created a sense of solidarity, providing spaces for expression, remembrance, and mutual encouragement. Coping mechanisms included creative outlets, volunteer work, and involvement in community safety initiatives, all of which reinforced a proactive approach to healing. The perpetrator, now incarcerated, became a subject of analysis for law enforcement and psychologists alike. Understanding the motives, behaviors, and psychology of individuals who commit crimes and evade detection for years offered insight into preventing future offenses. Profiling, interviews, and case studies drew from this investigation, contributing to broader knowledge of criminal patterns, investigative strategies, and the utility of forensic genealogy in solving cold cases. The resolution of Veronica Hale's case thus had implications beyond Clearwater, influencing law enforcement practices in other jurisdictions and highlighting the potential of modern investigative methods to close long-standing gaps in justice. Community events honoring Veronica evolved into initiatives that focused on youth mentorship, safety, education, and awareness of the long-term effects of trauma. Memorial scholarships in her name supported students pursuing careers in law enforcement, social work, or forensic science, reflecting the intersection of personal tragedy and public good. Friends and family coordinated with local authorities to host educational workshops, seminars, and awareness campaigns, creating a sustained, constructive response to the crime. These programs ensured that the lessons of the case endured, transforming grief into proactive, positive contributions for future generations. For the Hales, the closure provided by the trial allowed them to make practical decisions about their lives. They began organizing personal projects, supporting community programs, and advocating for better cold case protocols nationwide. Their advocacy focused not only on missing persons, but also on highlighting the resilience of families navigating long-term uncertainty. They shared their story at professional gatherings, civic meetings, and community forums, always emphasizing the importance of hope, patience, and the belief that perseverance could lead to justice. No matter how much time had passed, ultimately, the resolution of Veronica Hale's case represented the triumph of meticulous investigation, community support, and modern forensic science. It demonstrated that truth could emerge even after years of silence, uncertainty, and grief. Families, friends, and communities were reminded of the value of persistence, compassion, and collective vigilance. While the loss could never be undone, the long-awaited answers offered a foundation for healing, reflection, and meaningful action. Clearwater's story, and that of the Hale family, would continue to serve as a reminder that even the darkest mysteries could find resolution, and that justice, no matter how delayed, could restore a measure of balance to lives disrupted by tragedy in the years following. The Hales maintained Veronica's memory through ongoing community involvement. Scholarships, memorials, and educational programs became part of the fabric of Clearwater, ensuring that her life and story continued to influence the town positively. The case inspired law enforcement officers, educators, and families alike to remain vigilant, hopeful, and committed to truth. It illustrated the profound impact of science, diligence, and persistence in cold cases, encouraging others not to abandon the pursuit of justice, regardless of time elapsed. Veronica's legacy, marked by both her life and the eventual resolution of her disappearance, would remain a guiding example for anyone confronting uncertainty, loss, and the enduring hope that truth can ultimately prevail.